we start the next chapter on machines, and as opposed to the ordinary understanding of what a machine is. When you say machine, for example, you think of complex machines like automobiles, computers, and so on, uh, which are also kinds of machines, but they are complex machines. Traditionally in physics, we we start the study of machines in by studying some simple machines, and the simple machines are some of the oldest devices that we have been using, some hundreds of years old, some perhaps thousands of years old, and some may go back to prehistory. So what do we mean by a simple machine? So in the textbook there is a definition that is given that seems a little mouthful, a bit of a mouthful to say. So let us try to understand it in a simpler form. So I've listed down what a simple machine can do for us. A simple machine should be able to give us a larger output force by using a smaller output input force. So basically what it has to do is it has to multiply the force that is applied. So that can be one advantage. It would be advantageous, if you think about it, to be able to lift a larger force, like say for example, we have studied this in the past. You have a big boulder that you want to lift, and you can lift that big boulder by using a simple lever. You place a fulcrum somewhere very close to this end of the boulder, and you apply a downward force. How do I show this? Okay, so if you apply a downward force over here, then you can obtain a much larger output force over there. The logic that is used to understand this is of course the principle of moments again, but we will re-examine that. Okay, so this is a situation where the force is multiplied. Another advantage of using a simple machine could be to change the direction in which you are applying the force. So you take this situation with pulleys. To lift an object up from the ground, if you do not use a pulley, then obviously you have to be applying a force in the upward direction, right? But by using a pulley, you can change the direction of force applied to a downward direction, which is more convenient for us because we can then use our body weight to pull the object up. So that could be one advantage of using a simple machine. And the third advantage is to increase the speed with which something happens. Now, an easy example of this would be to talk about a bicycle, the bicycle gear train, but it's not part of the syllabus, and also the gear train is a little bit harder to understand. So I have a kind of comic example that I give for increasing the speed. Okay, so what I'm going to talk about is not practical, it's not actually done in that manner, but I just like to give this example because it kind of makes people imagine. Let's say that you have a large uh, billboard, okay, that you need to get painted. One moment. Now, let's say that you don't have a lot of time to do this job, or you procrastinated, and now you are on the deadline. So if you don't complete the job immediately, then you are going to lose the contract. So one way in which you can do this is uh, construct something like this. Okay, so this arm over here is a movable arm. You have a smaller canvas over here, which is a scale model of this canvas. Okay, and let us say that this arm can be moved up and down, forward and backward. So a small stroke, so you have a paintbrush attached over here, and you have a another larger paintbrush attached over here. Do you get the idea of what I'm trying to do? So if you make a small movement over here, that will result in a large movement over here. You get it? So that way you can increase the speed, but then the effort that you apply over here, you can imagine, is going to be pretty high, because you have to move a small short arm over here to move the whole arm on the other side. So you better be very strong to be able to use this idea. Okay, I saw this in a cartoon somewhere sometime long ago. It's not a practical thing, but it gives you the idea that in order to increase the speed, you have to increase the effort as well. So that, I think, encapsulates the idea of what a simple machine is. If the machine that you're using, if the device that you're using, if the object that you're using does one of these three things, then you have what can be called as a simple machine. Mind you, no machine can do two of these things. It is not possible. If you multiply the force applied, then you cannot increase the speed. It will necessarily become slow, that means. And also changing the direction of the force, changing the direction of the force may be possible. Yes, these two will be possible together. I'm sorry, yeah, that makes sense. These two will also be possible, but these two cannot happen together. Okay. So now let us move on to discuss levers. Any questions at this point of time you can ask. Okay, so we discuss now the first kind of machine, simple machine, that is the lever. So just like the diagram that I drew in the session just before this, the simplest way to think about a lever is when you have a big boulder that you need to lift or move. If you have a heavy metal rod, which basically will not bend or it's not elastic, then you can use the metal rod in this manner. And by applying a downward force over here, you can produce a much larger output force over here. So we can call the force that you are applying downward as the effort, and the force that is applied upward as the load. Now, okay, this fellow looks like he's gone off the ground. Now, could somebody explain, if you remember, why is it that the effort is small and the load is large? How does that happen? Because it seems quite fantastical that you are able to apply a small force on this side and get a much larger output on that side. How can the force just increase like that? Yeah. Go ahead.
Conservation.
Ishan, you go ahead, man.
Okay, fine. I guess because of conservation of energy, I mean, work equals to Fs, right?
Yeah.
So S is high here and it's low there, so the force has to be.
Okay, so you'll have to break that down a little bit more. Where is the work done over here? I can see that there is an effort and there is a load that is there, but how can you talk in terms of work done? Can you explain that part? Does this diagram help you to explain that?
Yeah.
Now can you give the entire picture? Would somebody like to try, or shall I go ahead and give the answer? Okay.
What exactly do we have to
Yeah,
hold?
you have to say, you have to show y is L greater than E. How can you show that the load is greater than the effort?
Well, if we, I mean, since it's like a pivot, that point, the force is acting from like there, that pivot to the center of mass of the load, right? So you can call that distance small as,
No,
and you can call.
not the center of mass of the load, but the point of application of the force. So the
Oh
point of
yeah.
application is the end over here. So then that's why I didn't show the rock being entirely lifted. It's been tilted. We did this activity in 8th, if you people remember, right?
Mm-hmm.
Mm. So I'm surprised. Okay, actually, I'm not very surprised you have all forgotten it. That's quite likely to happen. But let's try to recall what we did. Okay, maybe I should explain because we don't have a lot of time. Uh, Consider the following. Okay, so like Ishan was trying to explain, we have a point about which this entire object is turning. Okay, this point traditionally it's called the fulcrum, but basically what you can see it's that is an axis of rotation. Okay, now what is happening is you are applying an effort over here, and there is an axis of rotation and a force is acting on the other side. So basically there is a rotational motion that is taking place over here. Now as you are applying the effort, this part of it is moving in this direction and this part of it is going to move in this direction, correct? And that's what has indeed happened over here. You brought this from there to here and this moved from here to there, right? So an effort is being applied and an object is being moved through a certain distance s. Let us keep this as se. And on this side, because of the effort being applied, a load is also moved, and therefore on this side also there is a distance sl. Okay, so this is SC and this is SL. It's part of the same thing. I'm showing it to you before and after, but basically the same thing occurs. So now we can say that the work done on the effort side should be equal to the work done on the load side. That has to be true because work done is equal to energy spent. So therefore energy has to be the same on either side. Why? Because of the law of conservation of energy, which we just completed. But work done on the effort side is going to be effort multiplied by the displacement caused by that force. Okay, and on the other side, the work done on the load side will be the load, that is the force, multiplied by the distance moved because of the load. Okay, now you can easily see, let us take it as a ratio. Effort upon load is equal to the distance moved by the load divided by the distance moved by the effort. Okay, now this you know the comparison for. The distance moved by the effort is greater than the distance moved by the load. Am I right? So
Yeah.
yeah, so now how will the effort and load compare? If the ratio is to hold true, because we got it from this, right? So left hand side is equal to our right hand side. LHS and RHS have to be the same. So if SC is greater than SL, therefore L should also be greater than E. That is the only way in which this ratio will hold true. So that is why we know that the load is going to be greater than the effort. There is no magic or mystery in this. The reason is plain science. Is that clear now?